Hello, everyone. I almost said good morning. This day is flying right by. So, thank you for joining us and welcome to our very first webinar of 2026. If we haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Megan Lepida. I'm a program manager here at Kirkwood Corporate Training. Joining us today is Sheri Zevenberger to speak on 4 steps to sustainable success without working harder or starting over. For those who haven't met Sheri yet, she is a PQ coach and a certified YouMap coach, which allows her to help teams and individuals unlock their true potential by developing and applying their self awareness. She began her career in public accounting, then moved into various leadership roles, in the financial industry before leaving the corporate world behind to pursue her passion for coaching by developing the Dash mindset. I know Sheri pretty well. We're neighbors and friends, so I know you're going to have a great time with her today. Sheri, I'm going to kick it right over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Given I'm not able to see you, I'm just going to pretend that you're all really anxiously awaiting and interactive. So that's where we're going with this today. So thank you so much for being here. Happy 2026. So yeah, exactly as Megan said, we're gonna talk about sustainable success. And to have sustainable success, we really need to have a sustainable approach to life and work, to all aspects of life. It's about having a sustainable approach. And a lot of us don't, and we don't even realize it. We just think it's adulting. So I'm going to get started here. Okay, I'm going to kick it off by talking about dishwashers. Okay, and loading a dishwasher specifically. So I imagine that each of you either have a dishwasher or you've experienced loading a dishwasher. And that in itself is pretty common. But what we usually think about when we think about loading dishwashers is our experience when other people are loading our dishwasher. That's what generally comes to my mind. So now, based on this picture, as you can see, this is the right way to load a dishwasher. Okay, this is how you load silverware. We have a dishwasher that has the little compartments, and what's clear to me is that silverware should be loaded in this manner. You put each utensil in its own little area. Right now, that's what's right to me. My husband, on the other hand, loads it very differently. And he just kind of shoves all the silverware together. He just kind of ignores, the little areas. And to me, that's the wrong way of loading a dishwasher. So these are kind of the things that create friction in our lives, right? He thinks his way is right. I think my way is right. And these are the things that, although they seem little in the moment, they add up over time. So that's just one example. If you have loaded a dishwasher or unloaded a dishwasher that somebody else has, helpfully loaded, you may have experienced this. Okay, here's something else you might relate to. You might relate to this gentleman. How many of you can type it in the chat. How many of you have a New Year's resolution of some sort? Maybe it's about getting healthier, doing yoga every day, working out, whatever it is. And you feel like this guy some days. I mean, it's already mid-January, so maybe you're feeling like this guy. We all do at times because we have this intention of, okay, I'm going to live life the right way now, right? I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to have a New Year's resolution. And then what ends up happening at times is it just doesn't work out. And so we're beating ourselves up because we fall asleep on the yoga mat and we're trying to figure out what's wrong with us. So we're living our lives when we're experiencing the dishwasher challenges. We're thinking, okay, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with my significant other? What's wrong with this other person in my life who can't do it the right way? And then we're trying to work on New Year's resolutions and we're trying to work out and we're trying to do all the right things. And then we ask ourselves, what's wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? And so a lot of our lives are spent in this cycle of friction because we're beating ourselves up and we're often beating other people up as well. So this is kind of what life ends up looking like. It's all of this friction. It's like a bundle of friction. And it can be really challenging and we can't really see it very well. We just know, okay, why is life harder than it should be? I use air quotes around should a lot because we should on ourselves, we should on others, and we feel like it's just too hard. It's like harder than it should be. And this is kind of a picture that comes to mind for me. This is just, kind of a bundle of friction. And here's the thing, most of us spend our lives trying to manage the mess. We're trying to manage the chaos, the problems, and trying to reduce the friction one challenge at a time, instead of understanding what created it. Even when we're capable and we're well-intentioned. Even when we're capable, well-intentioned people, which I believe most humans on the planet are. None of us generally wake up thinking, you know what? I have poor intentions today, and I am going to act as if I'm an incapable human. Nobody really does that. I mean, maybe there are a few here and there on the planet, but generally speaking, we're capable. We're well-intentioned humans. And so this is one of the reasons why we have a tendency to beat ourselves up, is because we do feel we're capable, well-intentioned, yet we can't figure some of those challenges out. So here's the experience you're going to have today. We're going to have a new way of noticing and interrupting patterns that keep repeating in life, at work, and in relationships. And a lot of times we have a tendency to compartmentalize life from work, and we have work relationships, personal relationships. But really, when we interrupt these patterns and we notice them, this impacts all aspects of life. Real life patterns that create friction and limit engagement, and how small shifts can create connection instead. A lot of times we feel like it needs to be a big challenge of some sort. We need to make a big shift in order to reduce some of that friction in our lives, but that's not the case. We're going to talk about how emotional intelligence shows up in everyday moments and how it shapes your work with others. Now, I'm not going to talk specifically about, okay, what is emotional intelligence, and get into all of those details. That's something I do in another format. But basically, emotional intelligence is having a better understanding of yourself, being able to regulate yourself, and then interact with others. And then one small intentional shift you can apply immediately to make the way you live and work more sustainable. And that's really key, because a lot of us are out there adulting and feeling like, well, this is the way it needs to be. And it doesn't always feel sustainable. So today we're going to talk about what that looks like to have a sustainable approach. So here's what it looked like. Here's what my life looked like on paper. And not that you care, and it's not, this isn't about me, but this is the experience I was having a lot of my life. I thought I just have to go to college. I'm going to be a partner in a public accounting firm. And I'm just going to work really hard. So I had kind of this mental checklist of all these things I was going to do. I had kind of two paths. I had the career path, that I was kind of living in one aspect of my life, and then I had kind of a parallel path, which was my personal life. So it was career, personal, and I wasn't intentionally categorizing the two, but it's just kind of how I lived my life, and I felt like there had to be some sense of balance. So I went to Iowa State. I was climbing the corporate ladder, working really hard, doing all the personal stuff I wanted to do. I like to travel. I'm a wife, a mom, a personal development nerd, doing all those things, but really kind of feeling like there was a disconnect between the two. And so I couldn't figure out what was the challenge. And what I couldn't see at the time was some of these, I have these words kind of, they're kind of shadowy. They're not really hard to read, but the intention here is to help you understand that we all have this stuff that we can't see in our lives. And mine was, I'll never get it all done. That was this thought that I had in my mind that, kind of held me back, that helped me, or caused me to live these two parallel lives. I have to do more. There's never enough time. I'm not enough. I have to prove myself. There's something wrong with me. It's never enough. These were some of those limiting thoughts that I had, and I could not see them. Um, and that's what kind of kept me in that mode of personal, professional, and just in this state of I have to keep working harder and harder and harder. In addition to that, going back to the whole dishwasher thing, we often have these thoughts that limit other people and also limit ourselves. So what's wrong with them? That's a thought that comes to my mind when I'm unloading the dishwasher after my husband has loaded them. What's wrong with them? If I don't step in, it won't get done. It's just easier if I do it myself. If they cared, they would, whatever that is for you. And so we have a lot of this friction that we create ourselves based upon the thoughts we have about ourselves and other people. So for me, I knew the life I was living was not sustainable. The approach I was taking to life and work was not sustainable. And I knew what was going to happen if I kept it up. Just continuing to work hard and trying to do everything personally and professionally and try to be, uh, reach some level of perfection, which was an illusion. I knew it wasn't working and it was going to lead to burnout. But I didn't know what to do instead. And so I had an approach, and it was the only approach I knew. And I knew I was heading the wrong direction, but I didn't know what to do instead. So this is where most people get stuck. And it isn't failure. It's just a space between awareness and clarity. And so often, especially when we're the type of person who I suspect you are, when you're a capable, well-intentioned person who's trying to do all the things and you're trying to overachieve in all aspects of life, you feel like it's a failure. You feel like, why can't I figure this out? Why is life so much harder than it needs to be? And not just work, not just home, but all aspects of life. So if you're one of those people, which I highly believe you are, it's not failure. It's simply a space between awareness and clarity. So know that no matter what you've done before, it is possible to have a sustainable approach to life, work, relationships, to all the things. It's not just adulting. It's not just this is the way it is. Most of us have this belief that it is because we don't know what to do instead, but it is possible to change that. And I apologize. This cold that I had or whatever I had 2 weeks ago is still lingering. So hopefully I can talk through all this. Okay, so know that you're not broken. You're in the jar. Okay. And so this is maybe you've heard this phrase before. I use it a lot, but we are so close to ourselves that we cannot see how to do things differently. We just don't know how because we're in the jar and we're trying to read the label. And I have on this label your dash because your dash is what you have between your birth and your death. That's what we have. None of us is making it out alive. And so we all want to live it with intention. We all know, generally speaking, that we're capable and we want to get the most out of it. But when we're in the jar, we can't see all the pieces and it's really hard to figure out what we can do differently. So I encourage you to step out of the jar and examine all the puzzle pieces. It's like we are trying to put a puzzle together, but all of the puzzle pieces are flipped over. We can't actually see what's the picture we're trying to create and what's the best approach for putting this picture together. And we can do this without setting our entire life on fire. A lot of times we feel like, okay, it has to be, I need to, if something feels wrong, if something feels like it's a little off in life, we feel like, okay, well, I need to quit my job. We're going to have to move to Bali. And I'm going to have to, figure myself out by working with monks and meditating all day. Or, I'm just going to quit my job and my family and I are going to buy a VW camper and we're just going to move around the United States because that seems like the best approach, right? And all those are well and good. Those are great approaches if that's for you. But a lot of times we feel like it has to be this or this. And we don't actually have to set everything that exists on fire. We don't have to blow our entire life up. We can make some small adjustments to really figure out, okay, how could I make my approach to life more sustainable and actually stop beating myself up, stop beating other people up. And most of us don't need more advice. We don't need more to do. Certainly, I type in the chat if you feel like you do need more to do. But I don't know anyone who thinks they need more to do. And we don't need more strategies. We don't need more information. We are inundated with all of this stuff. And we feel like, okay, one of these things, one of these pieces of information, one of these strategies, one of these things that I do is going to be the thing that's going to help me figure it out. But we actually just need help seeing in the jar. We need help seeing what we cannot see from the inside. We're simply too close to it. Okay, so when I really understood the pattern in my life, I recognized, wait a minute, I love to travel. I clearly love my family. I love connection with other people. I love all these things. I included this really dorky picture of me on a motorcycle in Vietnam because it was one of the best days of my life. But these were the things about me that mattered the most that I was kind of losing sight of or was never actually able to see to begin with because I had so much friction that was kind of drowning everything else out. So when I realized, okay, these are all my strengths, these are the things most important to me, these are the skills I actually enjoy using, not just the skills that I feel like I have to use. It really helped me understand, okay, what's the pattern here in my life, and what do I need to make more visible to myself? And it also allowed me to really recognize and understand and quiet some of those limiting beliefs that we had talked about earlier. So in green here, again, you don't need to read all of them, but some of those thoughts that I was having, some of those limiting beliefs I had, what's wrong with me? I'll never get it all done. I'm not enough. All of those things, because I wasn't seeing them before. When I actually was able to see everything in my jar, I was able to figure out what to do about this and stop limiting myself to the extent I was. It's not that we're going to, we have limiting thoughts and all of a sudden we just say, okay, these limiting thoughts need to go away. I'm just going to fix them and eliminate them. But just having that recognition and knowing that they exist and that there is something we can do about them is really helpful. But we need to have that visibility first. So, to reduce the friction in your life, work, and relationships, spend less time figuring out what to do and more time understanding why you do it. And I'm going to share some pictures that'll make this more understandable. But first of all, I'm going to jump into the Dash Freedom Framework. This is the framework that I realized I had been using and that I further developed to use with others. It's disrupting the default because we're all operating on default to some extent, acknowledging where you are and what you want, seeing through the noise, and honoring your uniqueness. So we're going to step through each of these in more detail. So disrupting the default is all about noticing. We need to notice what we're doing because as humans, we all operate on autopilot to some extent. And what comes to mind for me when I think about operating on autopilot is being on a roundabout and getting stuck there. So hopefully you have each seen Vacation, European Vacation, and it's when Chevy Chase is driving around the roundabout and he says, Big Ben, kids. And he keeps saying that repeatedly because he's stuck on the roundabout and he can't get off because it's easier just to stay on the roundabout a lot or a lot of the time. And this is kind of how we operate as humans sometimes. We get stuck in these patterns. We operate on autopilot because it's easier for our brains to operate that way. So it starts with noticing, and that's when we can actually begin to change. So when we disrupt that default, when we recognize that we're in default mode, it creates space to choose intentionally rather than react automatically. Because a lot of the times, whether it's loading the dishwasher, trying to, come up with another New Year's resolution, whatever it is, we are kind of reacting to the way we've always done things or the way that we think things should be. And so when we disrupt that default after recognizing it, then we have space to choose more intentionally. And it allows us to pause and question the stories we've been living because we're all living in a story of some sort. And actually, not just one story, but multiple stories. And a lot of times we don't question them because we don't even know they exist. We don't even know the story we've been living in. So we all have a mindset and we all tell ourselves stories. And what's really interesting is that the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we're living in, we take it as the news. And not that the news is necessarily believable, but if you're a person that believes everything you read in the news, that's kind of what we think to be true about the stories in our lives too, because we all have all of this internal chatter and our brains are telling ourselves things such as, you're not enough. There's not enough time. He's never going to do what I need him to do. All of these stories we're telling ourselves is how we end up operating our lives, is based on those stories. And we just think they're truth. We don't question them. And a lot of times we don't even know about all the chatter that's in our brains. So the iceberg is, I think, the best visual for this because we all know about, icebergs in general. There's the little tippy top of the iceberg, and then there's everything below that we can't actually see. And what the bottom of an iceberg represents is our mindset. And our mindset is our stories, our beliefs, our assumptions, and all of that is based upon our experiences, the conditioning that we've had growing up and, throughout our lives. It's a lot of the shoulds that other people put on us, the shoulds we put on ourselves and others. That's all the mindset stuff that's not usually even visible to us. It's everything below the surface. It's everything in our unconscious that we aren't really considering a lot of the time. That's a lot of what we just take to be truth. And then the very tippy top of the iceberg is our actions and results. That's what's actually visible to ourselves and others. And that's where we usually spend the bulk of our time. We think, okay, I just have to do more. I have to do another New Year's resolution. I have to work harder. I have to work faster. And even though we often know that's not actually sustainable, we keep doing it because we don't know what to do instead. And that's what we can see. That's what others can see. And so really what we're doing is resisting reality. A lot of the reason for the friction in our lives is our resistance to reality. And again, we're not going through our day thinking, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to resist reality today because I'm not, that's nonsense. I'm just going to resist it. None of this is intentional, yet it's something we do. So we unintentionally resist reality. And that is a lot of the reason for a lot of the friction in our lives. So we resist the reality of what I call the mindset momentum cycle. And it's the fact that, and this is all neuroscience, this isn't something I came up with, but it's the fact that our mindset, which is our version of reality, it's our underlying programming, all the conditioning we've had based upon years and years of life. It's our version of reality. And that is what determines the thoughts that we have. Our thoughts are what lead to our feelings, and our feelings are what trigger our actions or inaction in some cases. And that's what determines our results. So an example of this might be, one of the limiting thoughts that I had that, again, it was unconscious. I was not aware of this, but it was driving a lot of what my results were in life, was the fact that I constantly had to prove myself. Now, at no point in time do I recall anyone ever actually sharing that thought with me, but it was something that I was conditioned to believe and without even recognizing it. So my version of reality was I have to keep proving myself. I have to keep proving myself. I have to keep working hard. And it was just kind of there in the background and I wasn't even aware of it. So given that I had that mindset that I had to keep proving myself, that I had to keep working hard, my thought was always, I have to do more. I have to work harder. And this might be something some of you relate to. I'd love for you to, if this is something you relate to, please share in the chat. But that was my thought, even though I wasn't really aware of it. And the thought or the feeling that resulted from that thought was overwhelm, anxiety, exhaustion, and I guess exhaustion isn't really a feeling, but feeling tired all the time. That was the result of those thoughts, or the feeling that resulted from those thoughts. And if you've ever been in a state of overwhelm or anxiety, or you felt tired, you know that leads to a different action than you necessarily want. It might lead to you falling asleep on your yoga mat. It might lead to wanting to sleep. It might lead to you working, 12 hours a day because you feel like, oh, I need to work harder and I'm already working 11 hours a day. Now I need to do 12 hours a day instead. So that's the action it leads to. And then your result is going to be, maybe exhaustion, maybe just continuing to kick yourself because you feel like, what am I doing wrong here? And so it's just a loop because the result that we have generally it evidences the mindset we initially had to begin with. So it reinforces the mindset that we already believe to be true. And so we're stuck in this cycle and we continue to reinforce what we believe to be true to begin with. And our brains are really pretty frustrating because although, our brains are great in a lot of ways, they try to, the primary reason for the primary purpose of our brains is to keep us alive. That's the primary purpose. The primary purpose of our brains is not to keep us fulfilled, to allow us to have a fun life. It's to keep us alive. And our brain likes to alarm if something is different than what it's expecting. It likes to be correct. And so we're going to stay in this loop because the result that we get is always going to evidence the mindset we originally had because our brain's going to filter everything out that does not provide evidence for our original mindset. So this is part of the reason for some of the general division in society today. And don't worry, I'm not going to get into politics or all the things, but we have a tendency when something is different than what we believe to be true, our brain will automatically filter it out because our brain can only take in so much information and our brain wants to be right. So when we hear a thought from someone and we agree with it, we're going to pull that in and we're going to pull that in as evidence to support what we believe to be true. A lot of times when someone has a different opinion, we just kind of filter it out because our brain wants us to believe, oh, you're right. All of everything that you believe to be true is true. And we kind of filter other people out, or we end up having very strong reactions to those people. But we constantly stay in this mode of evidencing what we believe to be true. Any questions about that so far? This is, I know, a really quick explanation of all this. Many of us are our toughest critics. Absolutely, Jason. And a lot of times we feel like we're the only ones who beat ourselves up, but I never had this conversation with anyone who doesn't beat themselves up in some way. I hear what you're saying is my life right now. Yeah. And Laura, it's not just your life. I mean, this is a lot of us feel like we're going through this alone and we think, why do I keep doing this thing? Why am I so stuck? Why am I not able to figure this out? Why don't I know how? But it's just the way our brains work. And so none of us is alone in this. It's just the fact that we're human. We already have some friction in our lives, and then it continues to build based upon the way we continue to operate. So we have this whole cycle. We have, our mindsets that lead to thoughts that generate particular feelings that lead us to take action or take no action. And that causes a particular result. And where we focus is on our actions and the results, the very tip top of the iceberg. Because a lot of us don't even know about all this mindset, thought, feeling stuff. I know a lot of my life, it just felt really woo-woo to me. And I was really so action oriented. I just thought that was, part of the reason why I was working so hard is like I had this thought that I had to work so hard. And so I was very, very action oriented. And I suspect a lot of you are too, because a lot of us are. We don't focus on all of the what seems to be touchy-feely woo-woo stuff, even though this is actually neuroscience. So we focus on the action and the results. And so that very tip top, like I said, the very tippy top of the iceberg, that's where we spend most of our time. And so we keep taking a different action and we keep trying something new and we keep looking for just the right strategy. We think, oh, well, that didn't work. Now I'm going to do, something different. But it's all about doing, and more doing and taking more action that leads us to particular results. And we really have to pay more attention to all of the patterns that we have and everything underneath the surface. Brittany, how do we get past our reality that we create that has us thinking that outside people or factors make us feel as though we have to work so hard and do more? That's an excellent question. And part of it, one thing that is really helpful for me is thinking about, like I said earlier, I often put, air quotes around should. I think about what I think should be and what other people think should be. So let me read this again how now. So when outsiders, when other people are telling you things should be a certain way, they're really shooting on you. They're thinking about what they believe to be true based upon their own everything below their own surface. And when we back into it and think, okay, well, should I really do this or not? Or, what's the reason behind that? Am I thinking I should do it because somebody else is shooting on me and putting their own stuff on me? When we can back into it and think about, I'm going to go back to this slide. If we back into it, we can determine, okay, what's the result I have? What's the action I'm taking? A lot of times that action is, I have to work really hard because someone else is telling me I need to. If we back into the feeling we have and think about, okay, what do I feel when I work really hard? What do I feel that is leading me to that action? And we decide, oh, it's the feeling might be overwhelm, I'll say. Then we come back into the thought that causes us to feel that way, and we come back into our mindset. And so it's kind of like I think about algebra that I certainly don't remember how to do, but way back when I liked algebra in high school, it was kind of it's just like an algebraic problem where we're trying to figure out what is X. So we can fill in the variables that we know and back into the others and figure those out from there. So it's really, even if other people are telling us what they think we should do, if it's ourselves telling us what we think we should do, it's all due to our mindset, thought, feeling, action, and result. So I hope that helps. I know this is a very quick explanation for your question, but always feel like it's never enough. So must do and take on more. Oh my gosh. Yes, Nicole. And enough is really an illusion because we have a tendency to move the finish line and not really consider what we have accomplished. We just feel like, oh, I still have to do this. I still have to do this. I still have to do this. And such as pleasing others are proving ourselves. Yes, absolutely. And it's just the cycle that we stay in and we just don't know how to get out of it. And there's going to be time at the end for questions too. So please know that that you'll have an opportunity to ask more questions or to answer questions. And I apologize. I want to get my clock out. I forgot to do that so I can stay on time here. Okay, so in the handout that yes, Megan did provide it. There's a handout here. You're not going to, I just want you to know that in full transparency, you're not going to have time to really adequately answer all of these questions during this time. But I'd love for you to maybe print the handout later and really just take some time to reflect on this and ask yourself what your mindset is. And that's a big question. It's not, a one or two answer, but just really taking some time to reflect and ask yourself, what's my mindset? What's one of my stories? Because we all tell ourselves a number of stories that, again, we just take as the news. Money doesn't grow on trees. There are all kinds of thoughts about money, right? All based upon a lot of the conditioning that we've had in life. I need to work really hard. It's never enough. I'll never get everything done. Whatever that is, we all have so many stories that we don't even know exist. So I'd love for you to later just really take some time and think about what are some of your stories? What's one of your stories? And also think about how you can shift from reaction to intention. Because when we don't know everything below the surface and we don't even recognize that it's there, we're constantly just reacting to things. We're reacting to the way, our significant other loads the dishwasher because it's wrong. My thought is that the dishwasher should be loaded a certain way. And he thinks he's just as right as I am. So rather than reacting, really think about how can I be intentional about this and how can I shift my thoughts? And it's really a matter of filling in those variables in the equation. Oh, the handout. Sorry, everyone. The handout is actually in the chat. I just, rather than sending it out to everyone, I asked Megan if she could include it in the chat here. And if you no need to look at it right now. All of the questions that are in the handout are within the slides. And this is something you can look at later, but they're the same exact questions that are in the slides too. Is everyone able to see that? Okay. Well, that's something you can, oh, no one sees it in the chat. Well, Megan, I trust that you can send it out afterward.
Yep, I can. I
Okay.
just put it in the chat um 4 times in the last 2 minutes, so
Okay.
I'm kind of surprised that we're having trouble. So
Interesting.
I will just email it out to everybody that's here.
And just know it's you do not see the chat or excuse me, see the handout in the chat right now. It's not a big deal at all. I'm just going to speak to it in the slides. So no worries at all. You'll get it. Megan is quite on the ball. So okay. The next phase of the DASH framework is acknowledging where you are and what you want. And a lot of times we don't take the time to really think about what do I even want? Where am I now? And what do I want? And I don't mean necessarily where are you location wise, but what's your life look like? What does each aspect of your life look like? And is it ultimately what you want? Um, and what's key to this is really thinking through what's actually true right now without judgment. Because so many of us are beating ourselves up, feeling like we're the only ones beating ourselves up. And it's really important to acknowledge where you are in an honest way without judgment, because it's really difficult to figure out where you want to go if you don't know where you are to begin with, to solve a challenge that you don't even know exists, right? So really doing this without judgment is key. And that's simple conceptually, hard in practice. So 1 in 4 American adults say they truly don't know what makes their life meaningful. So if you are one of these people, know that you're not alone. And another 4 in 10 say they're not sure either way. It's just kind of, I don't know, because we're busy adulting. We're busy getting through life and we're just kind of reacting to a lot of the friction we have. So it's very normal not to really even know, what we want or to even think about possibilities outside of what we know. So when we do it, when we acknowledge where we are and what we want, it gives us clarity. It's a compass to allow us to determine, okay, which direction do I want to go next? And it's really a true starting point. And I often think about, let's say you're at the Mall of America, for instance, and if you were to look at a map and you want to figure out how to get to a particular store, you have to determine where you are first. Otherwise, the map is really useless. So it's a true starting point when you actually recognize where you are as a starting point without judgment and with honesty. And when we skip this step, we just kind of drift through life. We're operating completely on default, just kind of waking up each day, reacting to the circumstances that we're in. And we just become further and further disconnected, not just from other people, but from our lives, from ourselves. And oftentimes we are so busy reacting to our circumstances, other people, we do live pretty disconnected from ourselves because we're not taking the time to reflect and really be intentional about our lives and the way we're operating. So another question that's in the handout that you'll get at some point is, without judgment, what is true for you right now? And that's a very high level general question. It's one of the hardest questions a human can answer is, what's true for you right now, along with what do you want? What do you want more of? What do you want less of in life? And again, it doesn't have to be a big shift. It doesn't have to be, oh, I want to be CEO of a company and I'm here right now. Maybe it is, but it could just be, you know what I want more of? I want more time with my kids. I want less, maybe it's like less time with your kids. Maybe it's you want less house cleaning, right? I don't know what it is. It could be, it's going to be a number of things, not just one thing, but really thinking about what are some of those things you want more of? What are some of those things you want less of? That's a great starting point. And what direction feels right, even if it's not clear yet. A lot of times we hold ourselves back because we're so focused on the how. Well, I don't know how I would do that. So then we just stop ourselves and we stay where we are. And really, it's hard to know the how until we start taking action and start experimenting a little bit and at least get on the road, right? Um, if you're planning a trip, you generally start with where you want to go. I want to go to Paris. You start with that. And you don't know how you're going to get to Paris. You don't maybe know which flight you're going to take. You don't know what hotel you're going to stay in, but you need to determine where you want to go before you figure out the details. And the details are going to take some time, but it's a matter of taking one step at a time. If you're taking a trip, you don't just plan everything. Well, some of you might plan everything in one day, but you have to take it step by step. Okay, well, flight would be the first step. So let's look at flights. And then you figure out a hotel, and then you figure out all of the other things. But a lot of times we just stay in the I don't know how I'll do this, and then we just stay stuck, and we stay on that roundabout. Okay, seeing through the noise. This is when the fact that we're stuck in the jar and we're so close to ourselves, we can't see what our limiting thoughts are. We can't see anything outside of our own, the details of our lives. And there's so much noise, not just because we're in the jar, but because we live in a very distracting world with social media and, all kinds of messages from all kinds of people, right? I can't even, I don't even want to tell you how many messages are in my inbox, but there's just so much noise that we have to filter through. And so seeing through that starts with, really steps 1 and 2, recognizing that you're in default, acknowledging where you are, where you want to be, and then kind of shifting out all of the other noise, filtering through it and asking yourself, what have you been missing about yourself? What are some of those things? And when we do that, it allows clarity about what actually matters to us. So often, when we're trying to answer the question, what do you want? We don't really even know because we haven't taken the time to answer that question. So clarity about what actually matters is going to come through when you filter through all the noise and you realize, oh, wait a minute, what really matters to me is my values. What really matters to me is connection, or freedom, or adventure, or stability. Um, those are really going to act as your compass going forward when you recognize what those values are. Freedom from unnecessary pressure. The shoulds that other people put on you that one of you mentioned, when other people say you should do this or you should do that. When we don't necessarily know our values, we're acting upon other people's values and what they think we should do. But when we understand our own and we have our own compass and we know where we're heading, it allows us that freedom and kind of eliminate some of that unnecessary pressure that we take on from other people. And in general, it's just a better use of our time and energy. So when we understand, okay, what can I stop fixing? Because a lot of times we're focused on, as humans, we're trying to fix all of our what we believe to be flaws or what other people believe to be flaws. And when we focus more on our strengths, when we recognize what those strengths are, that's a better time or a better use of our time and energy. When we focus on our own values rather than other people's, again, better use of our time and energy. When we focus on the skills that are actually energizing to us, not draining us, again, better use of our time and energy. So when we skip this step, it's easy to get pulled off course. It's easy to get pulled off course by other people, by our circumstances. And we spend our energy fixing the wrong things. So often, especially in the working environment, a lot of times we're so focused on fixing the things that our colleagues or our leaders are telling us to fix, that we don't spend as much time on the things that we're naturally good at. And we're wasting so much time and energy trying to fix things rather than understanding, okay, well, who else is out there that has strengths that could complement me, and how could we each focus on the right things? So all of this pertains not just to ourselves, but to everyone else in our lives. So when we understand that we need to take these steps, and that if we better understand ourselves, we'll better understand other people, that's how we are better able to focus on not fixing other people as well. So a question that's in the handout that you can consider later: what comes naturally to you, even if you overlook it? So some of those things that come naturally to us, we have a tendency to dismiss because it's just the way we operate and we don't know any better. So I encourage you to think about some of the compliments you receive from people that you have a tendency to dismiss and think about, well, wait a minute. If that person's complimenting me on this, maybe it's not natural for everyone else. And really think about that. And really ask yourself what truly matters to you most right now. Not what other people think should truly matter to you, but what really matters to you most. And that's one of the things that I realized in my own life was that I I originally went into accounting and finance, which was great. It was a great career, and I did well at it, and there were a lot of great things about it. But what mattered to me most was connection with other humans. And as an auditor, I didn't have as much connection with other humans as I wanted because oddly enough, people aren't, dying to hang out with their auditor. So when I realized, wait a minute, connection and helping other people is one of the things that matters to me most, that really helped me figure out, okay, what's out of alignment in my life and how can I reduce some of that friction? Okay, honor your uniqueness. So success that fits, not someone else's version. So really understanding, okay, what's my version of success? And when you're thinking about working with other people, what's their version of success? How can you have a version of success that complements one another and that unifies you? So not someone else's, not what you think it should be. So when you honor your uniqueness, it leads to choices that actually fit. Um, it allows you to make an impact that feels authentic. It's not that you're not forcing it because it's something that you're trying to fix and get better at. It's something that's authentic to who you already are. And it gives you momentum that you can actually sustain. So this leads to a sustainable approach in your work and life when you're not trying to force things, when you're not just working hard all the time, when you're operating in a way that's just natural to who you are and who you want to be. And when you skip this, you default to someone else's template and you increase your effort. You increase the friction basically that you're experiencing in life, really making it harder than it should be. And I love this picture because one thing that I found myself to be doing throughout life was I was a square peg and I was trying to shove myself into a round hole. And I was limiting myself thinking about what I believed to be possible and what I should do and what was looked good on paper and what I felt was the right thing. And I was trying to shove myself into a round hole, which actually never, it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you and it doesn't help others. And it just creates friction or allows that friction to continue. And so another question in the handout is, do you feel seen and valued personally and professionally? And it's not just about your personal life. It's not just about your professional life. It's overall in life. Do you feel seen and valued personally and professionally? And I realized because I was living kind of these two parallel worlds, personal and professional, unintentionally, that I wasn't thinking about who I was overall as a person, who I truly was already. I was thinking about personal life Sheri, professional life Sheri, and I was just creating friction myself by treating my life that way. And most of us adapt to fit systems that weren't actually designed for us. So, like me, I was this square peg trying to shove myself into a round hole. And you might be doing the same. And you might be doing the same to other people, trying to get other people to fit the mold that you believe they should fill. So, the question is, what if you fully honored uniqueness, yours and others, and realized that we're all unique? We all think we're right in some way. We all have strengths. We all have value. And I encourage you to start with sameness and leverage difference. So a lot of times we think about we are trying so hard to be the same in a lot of ways that we don't even consider our differences to be a good thing. And so I encourage you to start with sameness and then leverage differences. And what I mean by that is, start thinking about, okay, what unites us? What is some common ground for us? What do we both want? And then really think about, okay, what are the differences that allow us to complement one another and really get to a point of success that we both want, considering our sameness? Because the value is really in our differences. And certainly we want it's more comfortable. We can do a lot more when we are on common ground, when we do have some things in common and have some sameness, but we're not going to be same in every way. My husband's always going to think he's right with the dishwasher. I'm always going to think I'm right with the dishwasher. But if we start with sameness and think about, okay, what is our goal? Oh, we want the dishes washed. Then we can leverage differences in some way. Again, I realize the dishwasher is kind of a silly example, but that's life, right? Life consists of experiences such as loading the dishwasher, and that's what makes a big impact in our lives. So again, this is the framework. Disrupt the default, recognize you're living on default, acknowledge where you are and what you want to be. Seeing through all the stuff, all the noise, getting yourself outside of the jar and realizing, oh, wait a minute, I need to sift through this. Stop thinking about the distractions and really kind of focus on ourselves. And then honoring your uniqueness and honoring the uniqueness of others. So clarity is what creates direction, and direction is what leads to alignment. So it's not just about doing more, working harder, and tolerating. It's really thinking about, okay, what direction do I want to go, and how can I be more aligned in my life and work and relationships. And the thing is, you always have a choice. Now, I always kind of felt like I didn't, because I didn't know what else existed. I didn't know that I should focus on my strengths. I didn't even recognize what they were. I didn't know how. And so without that how, I felt like I didn't have a choice of any sort. So I encourage you to disrupt the default. That's the starting point. Recognize that you're operating on default. And ask yourself, what's one small intentional step that you can take today? That also is a question in your handout, but just starting really small. It could be, you know what? I'm not going to beat myself up when I fall asleep on my yoga mat, right? It doesn't mean you need to sign up for a marathon. Just decide, hey, I'm not going to beat myself up if I don't do yoga today and I fall asleep next to the yoga mat. And so I want to leave you with this. You get one dash. Like I said, your dash is what exists. It's the adventure between your life, or between your birth and your death. We just get one. And so I encourage you to make it matter. And to do so, it really takes being intentional and focusing less on the doing and focusing on why you're doing it. So thank you for joining me and Megan, Kirkwood Corporate Training today. I'll leave you with that, and I'd love to take questions.
Awesome. Yes. As Sheri said, now is a really great time to put your questions in the chat. We did get one that was asked earlier, Sheri. Is it possible to get a copy of your PowerPoint?
Oh, absolutely. You bet.
Awesome. So Sheri will send that out to me and I will get that out to everybody. I did already email out the handout. I have no idea why it wasn't working in the chat function. We even talked specifically about not putting it in the chat until you all joined so that the exact thing that happened wouldn't happen. So I'm just as confused as everybody else.
I was just surprised that it happened to someone else, because that's the kind of stuff that happens to me. So thank you for that, Megan.
How
And
long did it take?
I haven't read all the comments yet either. So sorry, everybody, if I haven't addressed anything. Sorry, Megan, I think I cut you off.
No, you're okay. Nicole just wants to know how long did it take you to get to where you are currently?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, I want to just clarify that I don't have all this figured out. Okay. So it's not like, okay, just do what I did. You'll have it figured out. We are all works in progress, and I do not have it figured out. I just know that I'm much further than I was, and I am much more fulfilled than I used to be. I'm still a little bit of a workaholic, just less than I used to be. I still get, irked when my son doesn't fold the towels the way I want. But I realized, hey, listen, the towels are folded. It's fine. So I'm constantly in this process of talking myself through this. So when you ask, how long did it take? This is something I've really realized that none of this is woo-woo probably about 10 years ago. So it's a work in progress. I'm going to be working on it until, my last breath, and we're all works in progress. There's no finish point.
Awesome.